guys? I'm going to do a full card betting breakdown here for this card. It's going to be the Chukagi versus Calvin Kattar card. And just going to break down basically what I see from a betting perspective. Not going to do really big fight breakdowns. It's going to be a shorter video. But tell me what you guys think about this video, if I should keep it going. Let's get some interaction on this video. I want to try to get 500 views minimum to do it again next week if you guys like it. So put a comment down below, like the video. It definitely helps in getting it out there, things like that. And if you want to check out what I'm actually going to be betting on and you know what I'm going to be betting on these other cards, I do have some bets for KSW, LFA, etc. And obviously going forward I'm going to have bets on different promotions over there. But check out the Patreon for all of that. I really appreciate everyone that's doing that for me already. But getting right into this breakdown here, we got Charles Rosa versus TJ Brown. First fight. I haven't talked about this fight because TJ Brown was originally scheduled to fight another opponent, and now Charles Rosa stepping in here on short notice. And just looking at the line strictly off that, I will say Charles Rosa is the value side in my opinion. I feel TJ Brown is the better fighter. He's more athletic. He's faster. I think that on the feet and on the ground, he's probably a little bit more technical, a little bit better overall. Maybe not even more technical on the ground. I wouldn't say that potentially, but just I feel like a little bit better. But the thing is, you know, he has low fight IQ. Sometimes he can have lapses in concentration, get finished. He's been finished by low-level guys before. He's been submitted. His chin is also a little bit questionable. So I do think Charles Rosa has a path to victory in terms of the submission game on the ground. I think that also on the feet, Charles Rosa likes to kind of play that point fighting game. He likes to control the distance with that, you know, wide stance. He'll blitz in and out with the straight punches and use some kicks on the outside. And he's active, decent leg kicks. You've seen TJ Brown struggle with before. But I do think Brown is the much heavier hitter. He's more explosive. He can close the distance a lot better. He's going to be the guy going forward. And I do think he's going to wrestle here. He has to be in good shape. That's another thing about Rose. Even on short notice, I think he's going to be tough to finish like usual. I think that he's also going to have good cardio. He's going to push the pace. So TJ Brown's usually a guy that can match that. It's just he has to have his head on straight and be able to avoid the submission game and the, you know, maybe a big kick from Charles Rosa. But Charles Rosa isn't a big knockout threat. If I were to play this, I would play the, you know, plus 195, on Rosa, but not really too intrigued by the money line in that fight. We don't have these odds here. I think these are only on 5 dimes in the United States right now. But if I was to bet a prop or anything for this fight, I would probably bet the fight goes to decision at minus 195. But personally get a pass because that number is a little bit juiced, and you know, Charles Rosa could potentially get a submission or something like that. Even TJ Brown could get the knockout, even though I think it's much more likely TJ Brown wins by decision. But for me, the pick is going to be TJ Brown by decision, but no action on that one. Just not really too interested on the lines there. This next fight here, we got Brian Keller versus Kevin Croom. Another short notice fight. Brian Keller was actually the slight underdog in the original matchup where he fought Saeed Kakramanov, but now he's the big favorite against Kevin Croom, and I agree with this line. I think that Kelleher, he's proven that he's better than this level of competition. Kevin Croom is a journeyman type of guy, kind of an opportunistic finisher, decent grappler, tough, hard to finish, but he's reckless and he does take a lot of damage. He's gotten submitted, he's been knocked out, so even though he's durable, he sometimes is reckless and gets himself finished, and I think that Kelleher against that type of guy is too crafty. He's good on the feet. He has a nice guillotine, which Kevin Croom has fallen victim to quite a few times. Croom does have a pretty big reach and height advantage, but so did Domingo Pilarti, and it didn't seem like that really mattered. I think Kelleher can outstrike him. I think he could take him down, and I think that Croom being here on short notice, being a little bit wild like he always is, I think that Brian Keller winning inside the distance is a decent play. I also feel as if Kelleher, or the fight just not going to decision, minus 120, that's another play that I think is not bad there. So I do think Keller is going to win this one via first round submission, and that's going to be my pick. And I do think that the props, Keller wins inside the distance, fight doesn't go to decision. Those are playable bets right there. Moving on with Mcgee versus Ramiz Brahimaj. This is purely a pass for me. If I was going to bet on it, I would bet on Mcgee because I think he has proven a lot more and he's the underdog in this fight. But I don't want to bet Court at all because I do feel like he's getting up there in age. He's becoming a little bit more hittable. Brahimaj is the younger guy. Brahimaj could potentially make improvements, and Brahimaj has okay striking when he's fresh, good grappling, obviously, just hasn't really proven that he could do it over 3 rounds. And Mcgee, good grappler. I think that's going to be the big difference in the fight. I don't think Brahimaj is going to be able to take down Mcgee. Don't think he's going to be able to control him if he does take him down. I think Court could potentially control the clinch, control the takedown game as the fight goes on. And I think Court is a little bit better on the feet. It's just going to come down to if Mcgee's going to be able to keep it up at this age, or is Brahimaj's intensity going to kind of get him over the hump. It's not like Brahimaj is super young either, though, so that's another thing that I kind of bank for Mcgee. I don't think he's going to have huge improvements. I do see this fight going to decision at minus 160. I think that's a pretty decent odds there to put a bet on. I feel like Mcgee is a very durable guy. He's tough to get out of there. Doesn't really get finished very often. And Brahimaj is very durable, tough as well. So I do think that fight goes to decision minus 160 on Bet Online. There's a little bit of differences on other books, but I do think that that's a good number there. Even the fight over 2.5 rounds, minus 185. But I like the fight doesn't go to decision a little bit better. Or fight goes to decision. Yeah, so I think Mcgee by decision plus 155. I would rather just have the fight doesn't go decision minus 160. I know that the odds are significantly better, but don't really have enough confidence. I think if you were going to bet on someone to win by decision, Brahimaj plus 250 is a little bit more value. And then maybe Brahimaj wins in round 1 plus 400. But yeah, I think the best bet on that fight would be to bet the fight goes to decision at minus 160. And in this next fight, we got Jamie Pickett taking on Joseph Holmes. And I'm seeing a lot of contrasting opinions. A lot of people are on Jamie Pickett this week. A lot of people have a lot more confidence in Joseph Holmes. And Holmes was minus 115, or I think he might have even opened as the underdog. I'm not sure. But I know the line was a lot closer earlier on. Now he's ballooned up to almost minus 160 favorite. I think a lot of people are low on Jamie Pickett. They don't really feel like he's a great fighter. So Joseph Holmes coming in here on his UFC debut is getting more love here, and I'm actually more confident in Joseph Holmes than a lot of people. I feel as if he is the better striker. He can match the length, the range, the speed, and the athleticism of Pickett. Obviously, he has to be a little bit careful with Pickett's blitzes, but I think he's going to be able to be more composed of the two guys, and I think he's the more dangerous submission grappler. I don't think Pickett's going to be able to control him on the ground, and I think Holmes could get on top and do a lot of damage if he can be in that top position. Pickett has been proven to not be the greatest grappler off of his back, so I think Holmes by submission at plus 250 has some decent value as well. And the Holmes money line, I feel like now at almost minus 160, maybe is a little bit too bloated, but I do think I would play that over the Jamie Pickett line. I just think that Holmes is going to get the job done in this one, and I think he'll win inside the distance, but you know, in terms of the props for Holmes winning inside the distance, I think it'd be the submission prop plus 250. TKO KO, I don't really see it as a likely scenario. Pickett by knockout plus 450, you know, maybe that could potentially happen, but I'm leaning more towards Joseph Holmes getting the job done there. And, you know, the money line maybe is bet a little bit too wide at this point, but maybe you could get a little bit on the submission prop. But probably at this point it's probably a pass on this fight on the odds currently. And in this next fight, again, Dakota Bush versus Slav. This is another one where I think it's a dog or pass fight. Obviously, I did pick Dakota Bush, so it makes sense I would say that. And he stayed steady around like plus 155. Some books he's gotten up to plus 170, I could see. But, you know, I think that the line is a little bit off because I do think that Borshev has not proven that much against grapplers. I think Bush is probably the best grappler and most athletic grappler that he's fought. So I do think that Bush definitely has a path to victory with the wrestling. So just looking at this fight, I think that if Borshev's going to win, it's probably going to be in the third round. I think he could win by knockout or the first round, because I feel like either he's just going to be way better than him, or he's going to get Bush tired and then finish him if he is to win. And if Bush wins, I think it's going to either be a submission in round 1 because he does come out really fast, or decision win. So I do think you can kind of play different things on this fight. I think you could play Bush in round 1 at some books he's up at plus 900, other ones he's down at plus 550. So it looks like some other people have played Bush in round 1. Borshev around 3 to me, plus 750 isn't the greatest. Plus 1,000 is decent, but I think Borshev round 3 has some value because Bush has slowed down in fights, and if he can wrestle him a couple rounds and then gets tired, maybe Borshev could get him out of there in the third. You can get a nice juicy prop there, but Bush by submission as well, plus 340. I think it has some value, and just the money line I do think has some value as well. So I would side more on the Dakota Bush by decision and Dakota Bush money line bets, but Borshev, I think if he wins, it'll be inside the distance. That's at plus 110 odds, not great, but him winning in round 3, that might be a good angle to take. So I'm going to go with Dakota Bush, though, on the fight, and I feel like his money line is the side that has some value there. And moving along here, we got Bill Algeo versus Joe Anderson Brito next. This is a close fight. Obviously, the money line indicates that. I think Brito looked like he had a bit of a rough weight cut for this one. But at the end of the day, I just favor Joe Anderson Brito in this matchup because of the grappling. I think Algeo is a good submission grappler. He has good get-ups, but his wrestling is not really on point. I think Brito has the grappling chops too, and Algeo gives his back to backpack him or kind of control his back a little bit from standing, maybe mat return him a couple times. And I think Brito's going to maybe get a little bit tired, and that's where Algeo has a chance. But Algeo in his last couple of fights in the third round, and specifically his fight with Spike Carlisle, I feel like he didn't really go for the finish, and he wasn't as urgent, even in the Lamas fight, things like that. I feel like Algeo, if he is to win, needs to be much more aggressive, and that could lead to him getting taken down. So just looking at the fight, I think that the money line, minus 140, plus 120 is probably pretty accurate. I don't think there's a lot of value on either side in that fight. But for the fight goes to decision, minus 135, I do think there's some value there because both guys are tough. They're hard to finish. And I think that it's going to be primarily on the ground. Algeo, if he keeps on the feet, has the chance to maybe land a big shot, but both guys are durable. I think that, the fight goes to decision is a likely outcome, and minus 135, some decent odds there for that. Brito wins by decision, plus 175, I think is decent as well. Algeo in round 3, plus 1400, I mean, the odds are good there. I don't really see it happening, but it's a possibility. And then Algeo by decision. So, I think that honestly the fight goes to decision is the bet to make for this fight if you were to make a bet. But that's what I got. I got Brito by decision in this one. And this next fight, Jennifer Maia versus Kayla Chukagi. Man, I mean, Chukagian's been steam major. She's at minus 190, minus 195 some places. So don't think there's much value at all on the Chukagian money line anymore. But honestly, anytime you're going to bet a Chukagian fight, betting her by decision is the way to go. You can get her, minus 125 certain places, minus 150. I mean, that's not really great value there at that point. But, I just feel like it's going to be a similar fight to the last one with Chukagian moving around, using her striking. Maia just doesn't have the best fight IQ. I do think that her at plus 240, 250, 260, or even her money line at this point has some okay value, though, honestly, because I do feel as if Maia, if she goes in there with the game plan to get the takedowns, she's going to be able to get them fairly easily and maybe win that way. It is the smaller cage, so Maia, she could get the win, and obviously, in a Chukagian fight, anytime you can get the fight go decision, I mean, minus 325 isn't terrible, honestly. I think that it's probably going to go to decision. You could throw that in some parlays, things like that, but I got Chukagi to win by decision, very similar to their first fight. And Brandon Royval versus Rogerio Bontorin. it's another one of these guys in Rogerio Bontrain that you wanted to see on the scales. And he didn't make weight, but I did feel like he looked like he had a bit of a rough cut himself. But, yeah, I mean, at least he made the weight, and he was able to, keep the fight intact, everything like that. And, yeah, it should be a good one. I mean, obviously, Royval is the favorite, minus 165. And I see some people making the case for Bontrain with the grappling, but I am on the side of Royval. I just feel like he has the cardio edge. I think Bontrain slows down at 125, and I think he is a lot better on the feet. He's more dangerous. He's going to push the pace, and he's going to be hard to control on the mat as well. I felt like he looked pretty good against Pantoja, and I like Royval on this one, so do think that his money line's okay. It's not great value, but it's bettable in my opinion at minus 160, minus 165. If you're getting up to that minus 185 range, minus 180, I don't really know. But I do think Royval is still the value side on the money line currently. The fight doesn't go decision, minus 210. I think it's a little bit too high of a price, even though I do think that it's not going to go decision more than likely. Maybe you could look at Royval winning in round 1 or round 2, plus 250, plus 450, sprinkle that a little bit, because I think he's going to win in the first 2 rounds, and I think it's going to be a knockout, so plus 450 for Royval by KO TKO, I think there's some decent value there. And then Bontrain by submission, plus 500, I think is decent as well, so Royval winning inside the distance, plus 105, I think is another play you could maybe do, but I think the knockout prop is the one that adds the most value there, even though that his submission is only at plus 175. I think he's more likely to, if he wins, it's going to be a KO TKO. So plus 450, I think that, you could take a stab there and maybe win some good money. And the co-main event on this card, we got Chase Sherman taking on Jay Collier. This fight was lined a lot closer. I do think, I think Jay Collier was the underdog at first. Yeah, and then, so this line's flipped a little bit. Now, Collier is almost minus 140 favorite at some spots. So, pretty solid favorite at this point is Jay Collier. And I did pick Jay Collier by decision. I think that fight go decision at minus 150 is decent value there. And I do think another play, potentially, obviously, is Sherman wins in round 1 because a lot of his wins are in the first round, and you can get decent odds on that, plus 550, plus 600, so I do think Sherman winning in round 1 is potential. Sherman by KO, plus 250, that's a potential, so I think that maybe even Collier round 3 as well, that's at plus 1400, plus 1600, could happen, but I do think Collier more than likely is going to win via decision, so I would probably play, if anything, maybe play the fight goes to decision. I think that now at this point, Collier at minus 140 almost is maybe running out of his value there, and you could even go towards a bet on Sherman, but I think Collier is durable enough, and he's going to get the win in this one, so not really, at this point, I don't think there's a lot of value on anything on this fight, kind of just pass at the odds currently there. And then finally, we got the main event. We got Giga Chukagi taking on Calvin Kattar. And ultimately, I did pick Giga, but it's a very trepidatious pick for me. And I'm not very good at picking Giga fights. But, yeah, I mean, no one's giving Kattar respect. Look, man, they even spelled his name wrong on the fucking website. Like, fuck, bro. But, no, I mean, plus 200, I think there's some value there on Calvin Kattar. I really do. I feel like, you're making a bet. You can get Kattar at those odds. It's pretty good. You can get Kattar by knockout. Plus 300, plus 400. Not bad. Him winning in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. I think those are live propositions as well. Chukagi by decision. Plus 250, plus 300. I think that's some value there. Potentially. Or Chukagi maybe to win in the earlier rounds. But I'm going to pick Giga a little bit trepidatiously. But I think the value in terms of the betting side is on Calvin Kattar. I think the money line, him winning inside the distance, I more like the numbers on his side. I do think this fight is not going to go to decision ultimately. Or, I don't know. Honestly, it's hard for me to say that because I do think that if Giga wins, and I'm saying Giga by decision, I don't know why I just said that. Honestly, it's just because it's like, it's going to be a striking fight, so maybe it could get finished at some point, but if Calvin wins, I think it's going to be inside the distance. So if you're going to pick Calvin, maybe you could bet on the fight. Doesn't go decision, but, you know, at plus 155, fight goes to decision, I think that the odds are okay there. You know, if you think Giga's going to win, Calvin's a real tough guy to finish. He's never been knocked out, so I do think that that's a decent play there. And ultimately, though, I do think that the odds on Calvin are better in the main event. But there you have it. There's the full card betting breakdown for this event. Like I said last time, you know, let's get some engagement on this video. If I get 500 views, I'll do it again for next week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments, what you think of my plays, who you're betting on, everything like that. And, yeah, guys, really appreciate all the support, and I'll talk to you guys later.